Nicole Kidman has filed for divorce from Keith Urban after 19 years of marriage.
Keith and Nicole's shocking $325 million split that rocked the movie and music worlds. Now we're tracing the clue.
Nicole Kidman has filed for divorce from Keith Urban after 19 years, and the shock isn't in the headline, it's in the paperwork. Filed in Nashville on September 30th, 2025, the petition uses the usual irreconcilable differences. But the real story sits in the parenting plan. 306 days with Nicole, 59 with Keith. That's not a close call. That's a picture of who's been present, who's been gone, and how this family has actually been operating off camera. What makes it hit harder is the timing. Weeks before the filing went public, Keith had already signed the permanent plan and prepaid his child support in one lump sum. No joint statement, no tell-all interview, just signatures that lock in a future where the girls live primarily with their mom. Layer on the guarded finances, each keeps their own earnings and royalties, and you see a marriage built to separate cleanly if it ever came to this. On stage, Keith's touring calendar stayed full. At home, Nicole set Nashville as the base between projects. Put those choices next to the 306/59 split and the picture sharpens. This wasn't a sudden blow-up. It was the quiet end of a partnership that couldn't bridge distance and routine. The headlines say divorce. The documents explain why.
Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban have separated. T quote, "She's devastated and didn't want this to happen."
Incredible mom. Loving, maternal, you know. My wife, Nicole, marry you here tonight. I love you, baby girl.
The shocker comes just 4 months after this love fest at the ACMs.
Who's having more fun today, you or her?
We both are equal.
Custody plans aren't poetry, but this one reads like a verdict delivered in numbers. Nicole is designated the primary residential parent. Their daughters, Sunday Rose, 17, and Faith Margaret, 14, remain based in Nashville with their mother for 306 days a year. Keith's time totals 59 days. In real life, that means the weekday grind. School alarms, carpool, practice pickups, group projects, orthodontist appointments, report cards, happens with Nicole. Dad's parenting time condenses into specific stretches, more like planned windows than a shared daily rhythm. The document doesn't point fingers. There's no line blaming touring, no allegation, no incident list. It simply mirrors what courts prioritize with teenagers: stability, continuity, and a predictable home base. Major calls, education, and significant healthcare stay joint, but the everyday judgment moves with the parent who's actually there most of the week. This isn't the architecture of a 50-50 co-parenting plan. It's what you reach when one schedule supports consistency and the other doesn't. Whether that gap comes from work, travel, logistics, or lifestyle, the outcome is identical. Do the math and the subtext becomes text. 83% with mom, 17% with dad. That's not a temporary compromise, it's the formalization of the routine these girls have been living already. Courts don't invent new realities, they ratify the existing one. And here, the existing reality is clear. Nicole keeps the home base steady, and Keith's role, by design, becomes concentrated, episodic, and carefully scheduled around a life that moves.
Nicole.
My wife, Nicole, marry you here tonight. I love you, baby girl. 4 months into our marriage, my addictions that I'd done really nothing about blew our marriage to smithereens, and I went into the Betty Ford Center. Nick pushed through every negative voice, I'm sure even some of her own, and she chose love.
Keith Urban's career lives on the road. Album cycle, rehearsals, radio hits, then months of shows routed city to city. Even in a so-called light year, a headliner can be gone well over half the calendar. Hotel keys outnumber front door keys. Nicole's work is intense but seasonal. A series or film locks her in for a stretch, then she returns to Nashville. Project-based schedules create windows to be home, to reset routines, to show up for the Tuesday through Thursday grind that actually builds a family. That's not a value judgment, it's logistics. Teenagers don't run on tour routing. They run on school bells, team schedules, exams, and friend groups that pin a family to one address. Courts notice that. The parent who is physically present for the everyday mess, missed buses, late forums, practice carpools, becomes the load-bearing wall by default. When a marriage ends, the custody plan reflects the reality everyone's been living, not an idealized 50-50 that collapses the first time a tour extends or a shoot moves locations. If there were a way to compress fatherhood into weekends off and a handful of breaks, more touring parents would do it. But time doesn't stretch. Every night beneath stage lights is a night not spent within earshot of a closed bedroom door. Over years, that gap stops being an exception and becomes the design. So the calendar becomes the argument and the answer. 306 for the home base, 59 around the margins, one career expanding outward into arenas, one circling back through the kitchen door. The numbers don't punish either parent. They memorialize how the household has actually worked. On the surface, nothing looked broken. In May, they walked the ACM carpet together. Smiles, shared looks. The choreography of a couple that knows cameras. In late June, 19 years got the black and white tribute treatment on social media. Sweet captions, fond throwbacks. To the public, the story held. But the dates in the court file rearranged the narrative. August 1st is the turn. That's when Keith signed the permanent parenting plan, the same plan that sets the 306/59 split, and names Nicole the primary residential parent in Nashville. Nearly 2 months before the divorce hit the clerk's desk, the most consequential decision for their daughters' lives was already agreed and initialed. You don't sign a document like that on a whim. You sign it when the conversations are over and the path forward is chosen. Another line in the paperwork sharpens the edge. Child support obligations to Nicole, prepaid by Keith. Not a monthly draft, not an annual recalculation, paid in a lump. Practical, given a touring income that spikes and dips. Final in the way it forecloses future arguments. Prepaying turns money from an ongoing point of contact into a closed chapter. If you think you might reverse course, you don't choose the one-and-done option. Then the public dates arrive in quick succession. September 29th, reports of a separation breakthrough. September 30th, Nicole files in Nashville, listing irreconcilable differences and recording that same day as the separation date. On paper, it reads like a 24-hour collapse. The signatures say otherwise. The plan was set in August. The finances were tidied before headlines. By the time the filing became news, the marriage had already been disassembled and boxed, piece by piece. That's the real rhythm of high-profile endings. The images lag, the legal work leads. Anniversary posts and red carpet moments finish out commitments while lawyers finalize the map of the future. When the petition finally appears, it isn't the start of the end. It's the end of the middle. Neither of them has said a word since the filing. No sit-down interviews, no "we remain friends." No, "we ask for privacy," posts typed by a publicist, just silence. And that silence has weight. In an industry that trades on statements, Nicole and Keith's quiet feels intentional, like a line drawn around their daughters and their dignity. So the court file becomes the narrator. Every clause in those Nashville papers carries a message. The residence line locks the girl's address in Nashville. The clause on major decisions, health, education, requires both parents' input, but the daily routine falls to Nicole. The holiday schedule lays out who gets which days, which summers, which breaks, down to the week. It's all mechanical, but together it forms a story. Two people who no longer need to explain themselves because the structure of their new life already explains everything. That's the part fans miss when they expect public closure. Irreconcilable differences isn't a performance. It's a choice to let the paperwork do the talking. The filings don't shout betrayal or bitterness. They whisper discipline, respect, and an effort to protect stability. After nearly 2 decades of cameras, they know what exposure costs. Nicole has spoken in the past about how public scrutiny hollowed her first marriage. Keith has lived recovery under headlines. They've both learned to build walls when needed. The silence isn't avoidance, it's control. It lets them decide what remains private, what stays sacred, and what will never be turned into a soundbite. People can read meaning into every facial expression, every missed appearance. Every lyric Keith sings on tour. None of that carries the weight of a dated signature and a custody plan stamped by a Tennessee court. That's the document version of a farewell press conference. It's calm, measured, final. In a way, their quiet is the last thing they agree on. Don't let the narrative be written by gossip. Let it live in paper and ink, where nothing gets exaggerated and where two names, side by side, close the story in their own handwriting. Years ago, both of them spoke openly about a frightening stretch early in the marriage when Keith sought help for alcohol addiction and spent time in treatment. He credited Nicole for standing firm and supporting recovery. That period is part of their public story. The current filings, however, don't point to that history as a reason for the custody split. There's no accusation, no line item that targets conduct or alleges danger. The plan sticks to logistics. Still, viewers can't help but read the ratio and wonder what lies beneath. In cases with teenagers, courts lean towards stability. They tend to preserve whatever rhythm has existed: school, doctor, routines, unless there's a strong reason not to. Whether the 83-17 split grew purely from scheduling, or whether it folds in broader concerns about consistency, the outcome is the same. Nicole will be the day-to-day parent almost year-round, and Keith's time will be specific and limited. That doesn't make him uninvolved, it makes him time-constrained. It doesn't make her punitive, it makes her the hub. Importantly, the plan leaves room for both parents to participate in major decisions. It's not a wall, it's a framework, and frameworks, by design, prioritize what holds up the roof: predictable care, a known address, and a calendar that teenagers can actually live with. You can tell a lot about a marriage from how it ends financially. Here, both sides waive spousal support. Each keeps the assets in their own name: catalogs, royalties, residuals, touring income, film and TV earnings, no cross claims. That doesn't happen by accident 19 years in. It happens because a precise agreement existed from the start. When they married in 2006, Nicole was already a megawatt star with decades of earnings and a cautionary experience behind her. Keith was a rising force in country music, with a career about to accelerate. A meticulous prenup would have made sense for both. Clarity then to avoid bloodsport later, and now you see the payoff of that early decision. There's no sprawling fight over properties, masters, or future profits. No slow drip leaks about forensic accountants. No courtroom spectacle. Money stays where it already is. The only part that required active calculation, child support, got addressed in a lump sum, accounting for the custody split and removing future friction. For viewers, that may feel cold. For a family protecting 2 teenagers, it's smart. The less energy spent wrestling over assets, the more attention can go to navigating a new normal without chaos. Red carpets and Instagram posts tell one kind of truth, the curated momentary kind. A happy photo at the ACMS, a black and white anniversary image. These aren't lies, they're highlights. Things you post even when the off-camera conversation is hard. The private truth, as the signatures show, is that the separation plan was in place weeks before the filing, even as the couple finished out public commitments with grace. That gap between image and reality can feel like whiplash to fans. For insiders, it's standard. You protect your kids, you protect your projects. You keep your word to stages, networks, and crews until personal news is ready to be formal. Rumors always rush into the silence. A mystery woman pops into headlines. In this case, the rumor quickly fizzled, and the person named was married herself. The fixation on scandal distracts from the obvious center, availability. Artists touring 200+ days a year spend more nights in buses and hotels than in their own kitchen. That doesn't make them villains, it makes them touring artists. When the marriage is healthy, a family can absorb that. When it's not, the distance becomes the story, and the parenting math becomes the proof. Friends close to the couple reportedly weren't surprised. The public might be, but the private circle watched the gap widen in real time. Beyond headlines and filings, there are 2 girls with tests to study for, games to play, auditions to try, and friends to see. A 306-day home base means school mornings will feel the same next month as they did last month. Same route, same kitchen, same house rules. Healthcare decisions flow through one address. Sports and arts calendars won't be rewritten every few weeks. Dad's days will be planned, precious, probably tied to breaks and windows between tour legs. That can work if everyone commits to making those days count and keeping the schedule clear of last-minute cancellations. Teens notice when calendars get shaky. They thrive when adults keep promises. Holidays will be negotiated. Summer can stretch a little farther. Technology will do the heavy lifting between visits. It's not perfect, but it's stable, and stability is the point of a plan like this. Courts don't design dream scenarios. They ratify what works. In a family where one parent's career cycles through home and set, and the other's through airports and arenas, predictability wins. That's what 306/59 puts on paper. A year that teenagers can actually live inside. No one sat down to deliver a monologue about why this marriage ended. They didn't need to. The filings capture it cleanly. Irreconcilable differences is the legal line, but the practical line is even simpler. 2 careers pulled too far apart for too long. A careful prenup kept finances from turning into a battlefield. A prepaid support line made sure money wouldn't become a monthly fight. And a custody ratio, 306 for mom, 59 for dad, confirmed what the family calendar had already known for years. Home was with Nicole most of the time, and Keith's life was mostly away. If you strip away the noise, that's the whole story. Not a tabloid twist, not a plotline of betrayal, just a measured end to a partnership that couldn't reconcile a household with a world tour. The numbers, more than any statement, are the truth they chose to share.